Welcome to the Encouragement Engineering Podcast, where we combat the negativity that inundates our daily lives with a positive perspective and positive actions. Today's guest is Catherine Cantey. Catherine brings more than 20 years of professional experience in sales, consulting, and coaching with a focus on results. Catherine is a tenacious connector and recovering banker. I laugh at that every time I hear it. She is a leadership coach, helping high-potential managers turn into senior leaders. And her sales program for business-to-business selling is creating exceeding results. Catherine is a wife and mom and cares about closing the broadband gap in rural communities. Catherine can help you get the results you're reaching for, whether it's in leadership coaching, business-to-business development, or facilitating strategic planning meetings. So please welcome to the show, Catherine Cantey. Catherine, thank you for being here today, and welcome to the Encouragement Engineering Podcast.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate the invitation, and I'm excited to talk about just encouraging people through this crazy little time we're living.
Well, good. And it sounds like you have the background to be able to do that, and it's always funny. I appreciate your recovering banker.
Yeah.
Always on the road to recovery, right?
Yeah, for those of us who have gotten out, I think we can all relate that we're constantly in recovery. Once we've been in banking and that whole world, you just stay in recovery and try to let those days go behind. And, one day you're on the banker side of the desk and the next day you're on the consumer side of the desk. And those are two different sides. So,
right.
Yeah, we're all recovering.
Well, good. Well, thanks again for being here. So why don't we tell our audience more about you, how you got to where you are, what made you choose to do what you're doing now?
Thank you. So for the past 20 years, I've traveled around the country helping other people grow their business. And banking and finance opens up a lot of doors. A lot of people need money. And so I haven't been narrowed down to one vertical. And it's just been an amazing opportunity to travel and get to meet people and help them grow their business. So I did that for 20 plus years and started out as a bank teller. So that's always fun, and just stayed curious and wanted to lean in to see what was the next adventure that was going to come my way. So I was able to just kind of follow it throughout banking, meet a lot of just really great people, sit in boardrooms, be able to translate what was going on in the boardroom, bring it back into the home office and be able to share what the opportunities were and be able to create a kind of a streamline of communication and break down some silos along the way. And it was just a lot of fun. And so as I kept growing myself within these roles, I wanted to continue to grow. And I knew at some point I was going to have to go out on my own. And probably 2 years before I went out on my own, I hired a coach who helped me kind of navigate those waters so it could be a bit of a more smooth transition. Because if you're a banker, you're usually conservative. And so you need to kind of have a path laid out before you take the big leap. And that coach helped me do that. And the transition led me to leadership coaching. And a lot of this, the B2B selling, business to business selling, that is a lot of just creating influence within an organization or an influence within a buying opportunity or selling opportunity. And influence has a lot to do with leadership and being able to say and do what you say you're going to do and deliver those results. So for me, it seemed like a natural transition. I think for some that are looking in, they're like, how do you transition from banking to leadership? But I think, a lot of the bankers that are in everybody's community, these are leaders that are trying to make the place better than what it was. So I think leadership is just a great transition, and the clients that I've been able to work with since I've broken out, 100% of them have been able to create measured success as seen by their stakeholders, and I'm super excited and proud of the hard work that they've put in.
Well, great. Well, and that's a great point you bring out, because the banker sees everything. It's like the accountant. They see everything. It's, if you will, the shorts are down and you're seeing everything, about the business and the opportunities, the pitfalls. And that's always interesting because you brought up some good terms. Translate. You're there to translate. So many people, it amazes me, don't understand financial terms a lot of the times. And that can be dangerous for not only yourself as an individual consumer, but also as a business. It's a lot bigger stake. So helping people to understand that is a great feat that you're doing, so that, they can make sure they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, so just earlier today, I was on a coaching call, and just a really talented individual and was just sharing, I don't know if I'm using the right words. And so it's not just in banking, but it's just in business everywhere. Are we using the terminology that connects with others? And so by the end of that bit of the conversation, I said, how about we consider, the way of the past was to tell. So leaders told you what to do. The way the future is going to be, leaders are going to ask. So how do we take that old mindset of telling somebody what job needs to be done and transition that into asking them in order for them to come up with the solution? They use their own terms. We begin to see what a theme is amongst those terms, so then we can communicate that again, but lean on them, because more than likely, if we can ask them the right questions that get to the result, we only have to go through that process once versus telling them 14 times.
Yeah.
So there could be a true benefit in repositioning the way we look at things and lead with asking questions.
Well, and that's part of the coaching. Most coaching plans is that's what you do, right? You ask the questions. You don't hand an answer. You've got to draw it out of people. And it allows them to think. It makes them think, and it makes them, strengthen that muscle of looking at a bigger picture. As we mentioned in your bio, you're a mom. And that's something with kids. I've got 3 boys, and it's asking those questions, getting them to think. It's not mom and dad are always going to be there to hand you something, but you got to think about it, because someday you're going to be out on your own doing your own thing. And it's a great life lesson to help people to do that and ask those questions.
Yeah. A lot of times the CEOs that I work with, they talk about, it's easy to find the folks who can come in and do the task, the day-to-day, like just computer keying and payroll analysis. Like that stuff's really easy, but it's the strategy and the long-term planning that they're having a hard time finding the right people for those positions, because they truly have to turn off the emails, turn off the cell phone, and strategically think and plan through some different scenarios that could be coming their way, or anticipate the unexpected like we just did for the past year, and have to think about how are we going to get through this, something that we've never seen before.
And that's a great idea is, okay, we've got to, and the Japanese have a similar scenario where they take an hour or 2 out of their day, and it's blocked out time to focus on strategic thinking. And that's something I don't think in America we do that well. We're always running 900 miles a minute, and sometimes, most of the time, it seems to be in reactive mode. And then we've got to take that time and plan. And, that's where the creativity, that's where the strategic things come to play. How have you been able to, I'm always curious with that, how have you been able to help people shift that way?
So I've got actually a couple of clients right now, and I'm really incorporating this thinking time into it, because these are our senior leaders within an organization. And, when you get to that point, you're paid a decent amount of salary, and they want you to strategically think this stuff out. They want you to show up, to be cool and collective, and not, spaced out and highly stressed. So as I work with these leaders in the C-suite, what we're doing is beginning to visualize, what does that quiet time look like? And first of all, it starts with really simple questions like, what days of the week are easier for you to be able to find that quiet time? In a recent example, I've got somebody that they just mainly have meetings Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So Fridays and Mondays are easy. And I said, perfect. So like, how much time would be your ideal time? He said, I'd love a full day, but I know I can't do it. I said, well, what's the minimum that you can start with? He said, I'd love to start with just an hour. I said, great. So you've got a Monday and a Friday. And what do you enjoy doing? Like, what is your best thinking time? And he's told me, the morning, because I'm fresh and like nothing is messed me up yet. And I'm like, perfect. Okay, so you got the morning, you got Mondays and Fridays. Is the office a good place to think? They always say no. So then we always transition into the next question. You want some quiet time. What do you have available? And they're like, I just love this local bookstore or a Starbucks or a park. And I'm like, perfect. So do you want to have a snack while you're doing this? Do you want a cup of coffee? What makes you happy? And just kind of makes it a joyful celebration of what you're doing, this thinking. And they're like, yeah, I just want a cup of coffee and sit in the park. And I said, perfect. So you've got Monday and Friday. Let's look at your calendar for the next month. What days do you think you can go ahead and schedule it? And so they schedule it on the calendar. And then from there, I'm like, what does this look like? So you're sitting in the park, you got a cup of coffee, you got a notebook, you've left the cell phone in the car. It's like we're visualizing what this is going to be. And then, we walk them through it. And then at the end, we come back and we talk about it. And I'm like, how did it go? Was it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or was it a waste of time? What was this? And when they reflect back on our coaching calls, they're like, there was so much clarity. By the time I went into the office, like I had my to-do list, I wasn't agitated. I just kind of left all that junk in the park and was able to funnel it into a piece of paper and be able to show up and truly lead these people that are looking to me. And I didn't feel that I needed to just be on edge for the day. I just had clarity and peace, and I could actually show up as a leader and not as another distracted employee. So it all starts with just kind of asking some very simple questions and reverse engineering into it.
And that's interesting because I've done that with clients as well. Picture your ideal day. And so many, we have a hard time doing that. We don't take the time to do that. And that's exactly what you're doing, is walking them through, visualize it, smell it. What is it? What does that coffee taste like? Do you smell it when you come into have that cup of coffee with you in the bench, and let them, all the senses envelop you when you're doing that task. It really helps to cement it. So then they have that positive feeling when they go do it, and it's repetitive. And then, I did this back of visualizing. Now I'm actually doing it, and it is really good. And that's a great way to help those leaders, because you mentioned that you could take upcoming managers and help them to get into leadership positions and so forth. And I think that's a key piece, that you've got to strategize. You've got to have that forward looking. I mean, we can all get tasks done, but we've got to look beyond the tasks, because software needs updating. That's strategic. Okay, how are you going to implement that? There's all kinds of tasks that need to be done on a daily basis, or even a quarterly, annual type basis, that can be strategic. How do you find, some of these senior, you mentioned senior leaders, is it a little bit easier for them than managers to go through this process, have you found, or is it kind of even, or what's that, if you will, that statistic?
The theme is these folks have to be ready for the transformation. It's not going to be for somebody who's not ready. These are already people fully successful, and they just want to take their career to the next place.
Right.
So that can knock a lot of people off. And the three things that we're looking for are actually courage and humility and discipline. And they need that courage to be able to stand up and say that I'm here to make myself better, and I'm willing to listen. And that's a little bit of the vulnerability of going there and saying, I'm not perfect, I'm doing a good job, and I want to take a little bit further. And then the discipline, again, to be able to show up month after month and have these courageous conversations with others. So if they're willing to show that courage and humility and discipline, and they're ready for the transformation, this can truly work at any level within the organization. You're going to see people that are coming out of college, and they're ready to learn, and they're just like looking everywhere to just soak it in as a sponge. And so this program can work with that level of that individual. Or you can have somebody who's very senior, a CEO within an organization, and what got them to that position is not what they need to do anymore. And so what they're having to do is let go of a lot of things and delegate and communicate in a new way. And so communication and delegation and learning to adapt your leadership style to those around you. These are all these things that we need throughout our career at different times. And usually what you think you need to work on, those that are around you are already familiar with it. And it's not just restricted to the office. Normally our spouses know that we also need to work on it at home.
Right.
And, it's having that vulnerability to put yourself out there and be able to share that. And I truly believe that can be at any part in your career, as long as you're willing to take it on.
One of the topics you mentioned there was the idea that the vulnerability, and if you will, I think it's like a 360 review. What do they call that? I'm missing the word right now, but that a lot of managers will go through that 360 training, where everybody's looking at what you do, how you react, how you act, and how you can improve that. So that feedback is critical. Is that, you implement that as well, don't you?
Yeah, so part of this process is actually getting a 360 on the leaders, and it can either be provided by their stakeholders, the same folks who are going to be giving feed forward to them throughout the 6 months, or it can be with, maybe the sponsor of the program, or it could be, just different people in their life who can provide, just valid and honest and, professional feedback. And so part of that 360 process, if we had to boil it down to simplicity, and I think sometimes we make things overcomplicated, and sometimes with too many emails and too many phone calls, we just need to stick to the basics. And so it's kind of like, hey, what are 3 things Bob's doing really good right now? And then 3 things that Bob could work on. And then give me a start or stop. Like, I really just need Bob to keep doing X, or I need him to stop doing Y. And by being able to do that, and you do that across 4 or 5 individuals or 6 individuals, you get the theme. And, we don't want to worry, because I've had the 360s done myself. And I think it's human for us to find that one person who made the one comment, and we just focus in on that. We've got 400 pages of valuable information, and I'm like, drill down. And I'm like, I know who said that one thing. And I'm like, but as the consultant and the coach and the guy that's in there, we only need to focus on if it was said 3 or 4 times. Like, if it was said once, scratch it and forget it. And we just need to drill in on what the theme is. And that same theme, more than likely, is what you want to work on and what your stakeholders want you to work on. And it's a win-win, because if I get better at this, then other people are going to want to work with me, and they're going to benefit from this as well. So it is a win-win, and it does start with the 360, just to kind of see where the common themes are.
And it's interesting because you mentioned that, on a business level too, but this is something you could do at home.
Yeah.
I think it would be a little more blunt, but that's okay. Maybe sometimes we need that. As a guy, sometimes we need to be hitting the head with a brick or a 2x4. It's just the way we work, But it's it can help you to see something you're not seeing, because we can't look at ourselves. That perspective from outside is very critical, very important. It is helpful. I've been reminded of that several times, especially working at home more now. I am by no means perfect. Just ask my wife.
You can ask my husband. He'll confirm mine as well.
It's but we all have our things, and it's getting, like you said, that one thing. We need to get past carrying that one thing around with us. What are we doing that for? It's not giving us any value. And like you said, statistically, it doesn't have any value. One does not have that much value on 389 other comments. So
right.
It's as people, I think we need to sometimes get over ourselves in that one scenario that we want to hang on to for some reason. It's just the bigger picture is we have this greatness within us that we can move forward, and we have to understand those skills. It's another piece that you deal with is, as we mentioned before, selling the businesses. That's a big deal for a lot of people. Whether they're at the time of retirement or they're going to move on to something else. How do you wrangle all that together with these people to, make it a smooth transition, help them to understand what's going on, as well as, if you will, I can imagine there's a lot of nerves, a lot of tension, help them to calm down to see the bigger picture. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I had left corporate banking, and I was helping a company in upstate New York and grow their business in South Carolina. And within 90 days, I was able to double their clients, which was exciting. And then I began to realize there's such a process. Everything I do just kind of boils down to a process. So I thought this was all pretty natural, like common sense stuff, like when you do stuff for so long, it just kind of comes normal, like breathing, and you don't think anything about it. Right. For everybody's got their thing that they think is like, oh yeah, what do you mean you didn't understand? So, just kind of putting this stuff together. And what I realized is I could package this and be able to teach people and make it more impactful versus me just doing it as one person. So I actually packaged up this process, and I broke it down into 3 modules. The first one was all about just simplifying your message, so it's easier for people to want to work with you. And when you can just simplify it and make it easy for them to understand what you're trying to help, or just be able to clarify whatever it is that your point is that you're trying to get across. A lot of times we use these big words and long sentences, and really we just need to keep it simple. Do you want a cup of coffee? I mean, yes or no. I mean, we don't need to overcomplicate this. So it's all about just simplifying the message and making sure that you're not using too many, acronyms in one sentence. As a recovering banker, I could literally put an entire sentence together that was nothing but acronyms, and it would make sense to me, and nobody else got it. So,
do that well too.
oh my God, yes, and it's
people.
tax season too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love my IT people. I'm like, what are y'all talking about? Yeah, so simplify the message, make it easy on the other person. And then the second piece of the overall program was just all about building influence within organizations and being okay that usually the folks that are selling or if we're talking about this, we're the folks that are already okay with the change. And then there's going to be this other group that's just going to be always against and resisting it. And human nature, again, wants to focus on those resistors. And what we need to be doing is focusing on the skeptics that are between the resistors and us and the change makers. So when we focus on the skeptics, that's the biggest gap that's out there. And that is our biggest opportunity to create change within organizations and within communities, is get in with the skeptics, understand what their hurdles are, and begin to create small wins and be able to bring them over one at a time. And everybody wants to be on a winning team, and stop focusing on those folks that are resisting everything so much. So, stay with the folks that you're comfortable with, and then also be able to befriend those skeptics to come over. And then the last portion of this, and it helped me a lot before I got out of corporate, and then it helped me again, especially during COVID. And I think life is just funny how things just come at you and you're preparing for things before they happen. This last portion was just all about leveraging LinkedIn to control your own network. And when we have a lot of things that are out of control in our life, when COVID came and we're totally out of control and just trying to make do, there's processes that you can use to be able to connect with some really talented people on LinkedIn. And one of the benefits is just being able to go out and find second connections, and just say, I saw we had a few things in common, and I'd just love to connect. And be authentic, be yourself. Don't go in with the hard sales pitch right off the bat, and just connect with people first and get to know them. You want to date them before you marry them, and you may not want to work with them. You may not want to give them the sales pitch. You may want to retract it if you gave it too early. So so controlling your network on LinkedIn, there's some little tricks of the trade that just help you connect easier to people, especially during a time when we don't have conferences, we're not getting together with people as much, we're tired of Zoom, and we just want to figure out how to make another connection and grow our relationship base and our network.
Well, and that's a great point too. I've had a couple people doing that to me, and the hard sell right as they want to connect. And I mean, it's literally in their connection note. I'm like, I don't even know who you are. Why do I want to connect with you? I don't even know who you are yet. But that's a great reminder to people that we can still network without being physically there. I mean, I personally love Zoom. Of course, I'm a video conferencing junkie, if you will. I don't mind it. I can see you. I just don't smell your perfume or your cologne. That's okay with me. I've been on Zoom calls to Australia, to Czechoslovakia, down here to Miami. You're in South Carolina, I'm in Florida. It's a great tool. And it's allowed us to be able to build those networks, I think, because we can see each other face to face on situations like this. And it still lets you see that human interaction, lets you see my eyes go up and down and laugh at your comments, or that interaction is still, I'd say 80% there. That piece that we can still do that even with restrictions is important. You said, building that commonality, you're not alone. I think that's a big piece to remind people of. We're not alone. There's thousands, hundreds of thousands of millions of people out there that are doing the same thing, and we can connect with them. I know virtual conferences now. I've seen a lot of those, been on a few of those. Things are just being done a little bit differently, and I think we're going to have to adjust to that dynamic. Like you said, focusing on the skeptics, if you will, and bringing them over one at a time. We got to realize this isn't going to happen overnight.
Nothing great happens overnight, and if it does, then it's not going to last.
Yeah, exactly. It's one at a time. We can't focus on those that are constantly the negative naysayers. But what about those that think, I never thought of it that way. Those are the people you want to get a hold of because there's a possibility there. There's an opportunity to share your knowledge. There's an opportunity to learn what they're thinking about so you understand it so then you can service that knowledge better that you may have for them. So great job with that.
Thank you.
Sure. It's always interesting too. You mentioned bringing broadband to remote areas. Help me understand a little bit about that. Tell our audience about that because you got some neat qualifications of all different things you get into.
I guess I'm just curious. So, yeah, as I was traveling around the country with this last banking job that I had, it was with a great bank called Farm Credit, and they supply funding to rural communities and to agriculture. And so I went out to go see one of our clients. And so I was at the funding bank and we provided the funding and the technology. So I go out to a local association or a local bank and I just kind of want to get a feel for what's going on so I can translate it back to the home office and say, this is what we need to work on. And so nothing like getting in a pickup truck and riding around with the relationship manager, and you can really get the dirt on what's going on and why people are not adapting. Yeah, so you put on your boots and your jeans and you hop up in the truck and you go talk to the cotton farmers and the row crop farmers and, crawl up in there and ride with them in the cab while they're harvesting. And you get to hear what the struggles are in the real time in the fields. Right. And literally, yeah. So I was out there and, you get in the truck and there's a layer of dust on everything. And I saw over on the console was a yellow notepad. And I'm thinking to myself, with technology folks in the back of my mind, I'm going, oh, God, yellow notepad. He's got like everything on that yellow notepad. How are we going to get the yellow notepad into the computer so we can data mine this stuff and it's going to be a lot more secure? So I'm just riding around, just listening to everything. And I said, well, have you heard about, the online loan application? They're like, oh, yeah, we heard about it. I was like, okay. So what do you think? He's like, you really want me to tell you? I was like, well, yeah, that's kind of the point why I'm here riding around with you. And so he's like, well, let me tell you. I was like, oh, God. And so he goes into the explanation and he's like, now this is how we take a loan application out here. I get out my yellow notepad and I write down all this information and then I go back to my house and I key it in. I said, well, what about your tablets and your computers? Can you not like take it out there and start capturing the information? Like that's what these brilliant IT folks are doing. He said, yeah, that'd be awesome. I said, okay, so like when can we start this? Like, let's visualize what this is going to look like and how your life is going to get better. And we're going to get rid of the yellow notepad. And he said, yeah, that'd be great. Now, we got one problem. So what's that? He says, we don't have any internet out here. He said, we have no broadband. So we can go all day long. But if you've got me an online loan application, we can't use it. And I was like, oh, didn't think about that one. So that was like a big old curveball. Yeah. And you begin to realize they have internet at their house and at their office, but they don't have it in their mobile offices, their trucks. Right. And it's impacting rural communities and agriculture. And that was before COVID hit. And now we're getting to see that big influx of people coming into these smaller communities. And they need to be able to continue to work with Zoom calls and everything else. And to do that, they need to have reliable broadband. And I know sometimes when I get on these calls, my broadband flickers in and out and, it's not 100% reliable. Yeah. And I'm in a more populated area, but, we're working with the best that we got, where we are. And so anyway, just by learning about that and going to, a lunch and learn that they had at the bank to learn about something called a vertical asset, which is actually like a grain bin, a water tower, fire tower, things that go straight up in the air. That's real estate that can be sold to telecommunication companies. And so that's how you can actually begin to sell real estate off of a grain bin to be able to get Wi-Fi and broadband and internet out to the farm and to the farmers. So it's been fascinating. It's a long education process, but just having that curiosity and taking it one step further and say, look, let's take this home. And we've got broadband gaps where I live. And what can we do for this? And it fully evolved into a lot of opportunity that came our way. So we are grateful, but it just started with a pickup truck and a yellow notepad and just went from there.
But that's the better picture of you're looking at your customer and their needs. And I think that's critical in any organization, especially in sales. What are the needs of the people you're trying to serve? And you're doing a great job with it. So keep that up. That's it. I mean,
Thank
the
you.
farmers are they're the salt of the earth, and they're the people that are supplying us with everything we need. So let's make sure it's like the kids. Let's make sure they have the things they need to grow. And great job doing that and seeing those opportunities for them.
Oh, I love my farmers. They're
Yeah.
awesome.
I like them too, because I like to eat. So
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm forever grateful.
Yeah. Catherine, where can people find out more about you, your website? Tell us more about that.
Thank you. Yeah, my website is catherinecantey.com. And then I also am on LinkedIn, and my name out there is just simply Catherine Cantey. That can loop you back to my website, and you can reach out to me. There's an email link there. And I also have free resources available, just constantly sharing everything that I'm learning, podcasts that I'm on, and everything in between. So it's all right there at catherinecantey.com.
We're going to put all that in the show notes too. We'll have your LinkedIn connection as well, so people can do that. But thank you so much for your time, your knowledge, your insight, and what you're doing for our America. I appreciate it myself. Thank you for being here, being a guest on the Encouragement Engineering podcast. I really appreciate it. Is there
Thank you,
any
Bob.
last note you want to give to people?
Just, keep learning and never stop. And Bob, I love your message about just, encouraging people to just keep being positive. And I don't think we have enough in the world. So awesome job. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate your time today, Catherine.
Thanks.